All right. All right, so septal cells. Oh yeah, and then we talked about 3 laws. I'm gonna write these up on the board. We haven't talked about 3. We've talked about 1. Well, let me see if I got them on here. Oh, I got them right here. All right. So we got 3 laws. That could be a thing that I might ask you about. The 3 laws having to do with this chapter. One of them was Boyle's law. One of them was Boyle's law, and that was the inverse relationship between volume and pressure. So we talked about how, like, when the lungs got bigger, the pressure dropped, right? And then the other one's Dalton's law. So Boyle's law.
No, I'm saying that's not a.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What are the 3 laws pertaining to respiration? So Boyle's law is another one. I mean, Boyle's law is one. Dalton's law is another one, and that's what I've got on the recording, and it's probably on her screen right now. I'm gonna, or it's up here. Hold on, I'm about to pull it up, or maybe not. No, it's not. All right, so I'm gonna write it. So the other one is called Dalton's law. That one's that each gas exerts its own pressure. So what that means is the air around us is not all oxygen, right? That most of the air around us, about 78% of the air around us is nitrogen. And only about 19 or 20% of the air around us is oxygen. And then you've got about, I don't know, then the rest of it, somewhere at 98%, right? So then you've got some carbon dioxide in the air, got some water vapor in the air, stuff like that.
Do we need to know the percentage?
No, not really. I mean, you should know the oxygen's about 20, 19.8, something like that. It'd be a good idea to know that, because that just pertains to. So, but the point is that whatever the pressure, so the air is not just oxygen, it's nitrogen, it's carbon dioxide. So whatever the pressure of one gas doesn't have any effect on the other gases. So it doesn't matter what the pressure of carbon dioxide is. It doesn't affect the pressure of oxygen. Each gas has its own pressure. You treat them independently. Right? There's an air pressure around us, but oxygen has its own pressure. So we treat oxygen by itself. And usually what you'll see is it written like this. It's got a P and then it's O2 like that. So that means just, when you see the big P before it, that means just the pressure of oxygen. And that's it. That's Dalton's law. Each gas has its own independent pressure. So you'll see the big P with the O2 in like slides and stuff like that. That's what it means. We're talking just about that gas by itself. The third law So that's Dalton's law. The third law is Henry's law. That's a little bit more complicated, but not really. All right, what I wrote on the slide is that I'm saying the amount of gas that dissolves in a liquid. So let me reword that. The amount of oxygen, that's the gas we're talking about. The amount of oxygen which dissolves in blood, because that's the liquid. So the amount of oxygen that will dissolve in the blood depends on two things. That's what I'm saying. Like, we know that you breathe in oxygen, then the oxygen's got to get into your blood. How much oxygen are we going to be able to get into our blood? It depends on two things. It depends on the pressure of the oxygen. Because like the pressure at sea level is higher than the pressure at like 10,000 feet. Or when you give somebody like a nasal cannula, the pressure of oxygen is higher. So more of it is going to go into the blood. So the pressure of the gas, and then the solubility of the liquid. So Henry's law is the amount of like how I wrote it on the slide is I'm saying the amount of the gas that will dissolve in a liquid is proportionate to the pressure of the gas and the solubility of the liquid. So if we're going to like apply that, then we're going to say the amount of oxygen that will dissolve in your blood, that will like go into your blood, depends on the pressure of the oxygen. The more pressure, the more goes into your blood, right? And then the solubility of your blood. So what do we mean by that? Talking about the part of your blood that carries oxygen. So what carries oxygen in your blood? Hemoglobin. We're talking about the hemoglobin. What is allowing the hemoglobin to grab onto oxygen? I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. I'm going to talk about the factors that affect how much hemoglobin likes oxygen. You know what? Why don't I just come back here and put it on a desk? I'm going to write all this on the board because for you guys, but like I could just. So, in fact, I want to do that. No, it's just you. So this is saying, and this is a question. So you can note that down. That's a possible question I'm going to ask you. What are the factors? However, I wrote it up there. What are the factors affecting the affinity? Affinity just means to like something. So what are the factors affecting the affinity of oxygen to hemoglobin? That means what is going to make hemoglobin like or dislike oxygen? That's what I'm saying. So I'll ask that. That's a very possible question I'm going to ask. And that pertains to Henry's law. But, all right, but let's get to that question. Let's define it. So you got four things that affect the affinity, how much hemoglobin likes oxygen. The first one you see up there is, what is it?
pH.
pH. Right? So the more acidic your blood is, the less oxygen sticks to your blood. Someone that's like a diabetic that's going through acid ketosis, their blood's more acidic, oxygen is not as likely to stick to the hemoglobin. So the lower the pH, that means more acidic. Right? The less the affinity. What's the second one? Heat?
Increase CO2.
Oh, okay. So increase carbon dioxide. The more carbon dioxide you get in your blood, it uses the spots that oxygen is supposed to do. It'll take up the seats on hemoglobin. It'll take up the space that oxygen is supposed to use. So the more carbon dioxide in your blood, the lower the affinity. So those first two things that we mentioned are things that your body does not want to happen. You don't want to lower a higher acidity, and you don't want too much carbon dioxide in your blood. The second two are like things that our body will do sometimes on purpose. Heat. It'll raise the heat of the body. So when you have a fever, the affinity of hemoglobin goes down. Because you're trying to get oxygen away from your blood so that it can go to the tissues and repair things. But that's another factor, heat. As heat goes up, affinity goes down. So as it gets hotter, the hemoglobin does not like oxygen as much. And then the last one is this molecule we call biphosphoglycerate. You can call it BPG because everyone calls it BPG. But it's a molecule that, you probably notice on the notes, I probably put something about thyroid hormones and growth hormone and stuff like that. Yeah. What I'm trying to say is certain hormones, they increase the amount of BPG you have. You increase the amount of BPG you have because you want to get oxygen away from the blood. Because once an oxygen gets, let's say you sprain your ankle, right?
Mm-hmm.
You want to get oxygen to your ankle. So once the oxygen's in your blood and that blood's over your ankle, you want that oxygen to get away from the blood and go fix the ankle. So that's why you have BPG or higher heat. But those are four factors. Lower pH, higher CO2, higher heat, higher BPG. Those all decrease the affinity. Means that it makes it, decreasing the affinity makes it less likely that the oxygen is going to attach to hemoglobin. Let's get that down. So that slide right here is pertaining to this law, actually, Henry's law. So if you see Henry's law, the second part of it is the pressure of the gas and the solubility of the liquid. I've got all these slides on a video that I posted last week. So solubility of the liquid, that's what we mean. The factors affecting the affinity for hemoglobin. That's what we mean by that. So that is one possible question I would ask you. Factors affecting the affinity of hemoglobin. The second question that I ask you is the three laws, which you're looking at right now. The third question you already wrote during last class. The factors of breathing in. You guys got this right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Boyle's law is what makes us breathe in, right? So I have written it on the board and it's in the slide in front of you, the factors affecting, what makes you inhale or exhale, breathe in or breathe out. The diaphragm makes your lungs larger. When the diaphragm contracts, your lungs get larger. When the external intercostal muscles contract, the lungs get larger. When the lungs get larger, what happens to the air pressure?
Goes from high to low, from the outside to the inside.
Yeah, you got it. So the pressure in your lungs drops. When the lungs get bigger, the pressure drops. And then the air from the outside goes into your lungs. That's how you breathe in. It all starts with your lungs getting bigger. So it's either the diaphragm contracting, right, and I've got that here, or the external intercostals contracting. And then I've got this word eupnea, right? Whenever you see EU, it means like normal. Or like it's okay, good, normal, something like that. That's what EU means. And then PNEA, that word's like in pneumonia and stuff, that has to do with lungs. Whenever you see that word, it means lungs, right? So eupnea means normal breathing. So about 75% of your normal breathing is because of your diaphragm, and the other 25% is because of your intercostals. So I got that word eupnea, and then I'm talking about diaphragmic and costal breathing. We went over that in the last class. But that's a possible third question. So that should be your third question. You should have 3 questions right now from the respiratory system. And what makes you breathe out, by the way, is, I don't know if I have it on here, but it's 2 words: elastic recoil. I don't have it on here. I don't have it anywhere. Right? It's called elastic recoil. That's what makes you breathe out. If you don't remember the word, just remember it's elastic. Your lungs are elastic. So they're going to snap back.
Is that a question?
I don't know, Mike. Can't remember. Maybe I'm asking what are the factors behind inhalation and exhalation. But breathing out, exhalation, breathing out, you just put elastic recoil, or the rubber band snaps back, however you want to say it. Your lungs are elastic. So I guess that's all part of that third question. So you should have 3 questions right. And I've got all this posted in a video. I think I called it Respiratory Review or something like that, right? I'm pretty much doing the same thing. That's why I'm kind of blowing through this. And it's got all these pictures that you're looking at, that you're taking pictures of. It's got a I want to kind of blow through this and then like get to your other questions that you might have about like the test in general. So we got 3, right? 4 is going to be about lung volumes and capacities. So let me see if I can go to the next slide. Okay, we'll start with that. So these are like, move that closer to you. I just didn't want to get in the way of your stuff.
Oh no, just.
But you just use it if you want. And this is all getting recorded, by the way. So if you like, you can go back to the recording. But lung volumes and capacities, there's one that you're definitely going to have to know called tidal volume, and you just think of the tide going in and out, right? So that's happening like the tide happens all day. So tidal volume is how much like a normal breath. So sometimes as you see it listed on that slide, they'll put like a V with a T, or they just call it tidal volume. It just means how much is a normal breath, and that's 500 milliliters. That's how much air goes in and out in a normal breath. Now, not all of that air is getting into your blood, right? Because what matters is that it doesn't matter about how much oxygen goes into your mouth and into your lungs. What matters is how much of that oxygen makes its way into your blood. And not all of that is going to make it into your blood, right? When you take that last bit of breath, You got some stuck in your trachea, right, that never made it all the way down. So we call that like dead space. So about 70% makes it into your blood. So if you're talking about tidal volume, how much oxygen or like how much air do you take into your lungs? 500 milliliters. How much of that ends up in your blood? 70% of that. So about 350. So that's why. And so yeah. So okay, let's go back to tidal volume. Tidal volume is 500 milliliters, right? That's how much every time you breathe, right? And then how many times do you breathe a minute? Well, how many times do you breathe a minute?
Depends.
Depends. How many roughly?
16.
We'll use 16. So 16 times a minute times 500 milliliters, that would be 8,000 milliliters, 8 liters. That's your minute ventilation. How much air are you breathing in and out in a minute? So all you do is you take your tidal volume times however many times that person breathed in a minute.
That's how they get their vent settings, right?
What's that?
Their vent settings.
I don't know. You'll be teaching me. Do you guys deal with respiratory?
Yeah, but I never have to do the settings.
What do you deal with when you do respiratory?
I don't deal with them.
Usually, if
Yeah,
I have a
respiratory.
respiratory patient, the respiratory
Yeah.
therapist pretty much do everything, but you
Everything.
still have to know how to do
Monitor,
in a cannula, suctioning
Yeah.
and what parts go where and
So the cannula is delivering how much oxygen?
The nasal cannula usually it's between 1 to I'm gonna say 6.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like sometimes they'll do 4, sometimes they'll do 2. That's increasing the pressure, right? And that by increasing the pressure, you're pushing more oxygen into the blood. That makes sense. That's Henry's law, by the way. That's what Henry's law is saying. Like the more pressure you give the oxygen, the more of that stuff's going to get in the blood. That's why they're on the nasal cannula. A mask, like a full mask, like when they're
It goes up
serious.
to like 15.
Yeah,
big,
right? That's 15
15,
liters.
yeah.
So that's even, like, that's when you got to
I
step
think that's
up.
a non-rebreather mask.
Yeah, non-rebreather.
That's when they actually coding.
Oh, you might bag them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we don't bag them. By the time we does that respiratory, by the time we call it, respiratory is on her, well, last time she wasn't on her way, but they're supposed to be on their way to, and I'm already blowing the.
You guys don't bag them when you're
Well,
when they're
see,
coding?
where we at is not. I'm not at the hospital. I'm at a skilled unit, so it's a step down unit. So we basically dealing people. This is their last thing before they go home, which is
Yeah, so you're not
rehab.
expecting if they're coding, they're gonna go back. They need to go back to ICU.
Yes. That's when we
Yeah.
have to call we have to call 911. They have to come in and pick them up and drive them down the street.
Right.
Yeah. So that's why we don't have like the crash cart is
probably limited.
it's limited. We don't have an epi, put it,
Yeah.
So y'all
kinda-
just do basic.
we just basic CPR.
Yeah. You don't do advanced CPR.
The advanced is mostly like med surg unit that they have all that. Not us. We're more nursing home type of
Right.
facility.
There's a couple other capacities I kind of wanted you to know that are on the previous slide, but I didn't write them out. Did you get all this?
Yeah, I got that.
All right, so I'm going to move back a slide. So tidal volume is just like a normal breath, like when you breathe in and when you breathe out, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't mean, that's not how much you can maximum fit in. Like how much could you breathe in? And like if I tell you just to breathe in normal, right? And I tell you, okay, breathe in as much as you can after you breathe in that normal breath, right? We call that inspiratory reserve. Meaning, inspiratory meaning breathing in, right? So how much can you breathe in? How much more could you breathe in after a normal breath? Like suck in as much air as you can, right? So you can get in Not that you have to know this number. The only number I really want you to know at this point is tidal volume. The inspiratory reserve is around 3 liters, but 3,100 milliliters, right? So you can get in like another 6 times more air than normal. And you can do the same thing for breathing out, and that's a more common test. They'll tell people, breathe out as much as you can.
Like after surgery?
Yeah, if they want to test
That's the what's it called? The
like before they
interferometer.
take out the vent, they're gonna they should make you they should test your capacity. So they'll make you breathe out as much as you can. You're not gonna breathe out everything, right? But you're gonna breathe out. So we call that expiratory reserve. Like breathe out a normal breath, and then push out everything you can after that. It's something like something like 1.2 liters or 1,200 milliliters, right? It means the same thing. It don't matter. I can't see shit on there. The expiratory reserve is something like, and again, you don't have to know the number, but it's like you breathe out, and then what's a maximum you can push out after that? So expiratory reserve is 1,200 milliliters. Right? You don't breathe everything out of your lungs. Your lungs would collapse, right? There's always air in your lungs, no matter how much you try to push out. You can't push out everything. There's always going to be a residual volume, which is about 1.2 liters. Always going to be air in your lungs, because they're not going to, unless they were to collapse, right? But they're not going to collapse, so you've got air in them. So you could breathe out as much as you possibly can. You're never going to breathe everything out. That might be a more common one, expiratory reserve. So anyway, the only number, the number that I want you to know from that is tidal volume. Right? You should know tidal volume is 500 milliliters. And then you should know about 70% of that is going to reach the blood. So alveolar ventilation rate. So we've actually got 2 numbers here. We've got minute ventilation. That's just like how much do you breathe in a minute. And then we got alveolar ventilation rate. Just take 70% of minute ventilation. Because we know that only about 70% of that oxygen is reaching your blood. The rest of it is just stuck in your trachea or your bronchi or wherever it's stuck. It never made it. So how am I going to ask that question? I don't know. This one's your 4th question. I don't know how I'm going to ask it. I don't know. But it's something like I'll say, like you got to know tidal volume. I don't know. I might just say something really vague, like discuss the lung volumes and capacities, right? And I'll just see what you put down. Besides tidal volume, you should know what like minute ventilation is. It's tidal volume for a minute. And you should know that only 70% of that reaches your blood. So we call that the alveolar ventilation rate. Like even if you knew just that, that would be good. But that's going to be the 4th question that I'm going to ask about. Is septal cells one of the questions that I was telling you?
Something that you already had on there?
No, I don't think I already have it. I thought you guys were writing down these questions.
I am.
Oh, how many you got? From what I've been
4.
talking about today.
We got the lungs and lung volume and capacity.
Yeah.
The effect in inhalations. The effect affecting the affinity of CO2, and then what are the 3 laws of respiration?
Good. So a 5th one, which is a really tiny one. What do septal cells make? Septal cells or type 2 alveolar cells. That is, let me go to the slide for you. Right there. The type 1 alveolar cells, whatever, they're just regular epithelial cells. Type 2 or septal cells make surfactant. That's what we were talking about last class. You want to lower the surface tension of the fluid inside your lungs. Otherwise, oxygen can't get past it. That was the baby thing. We talked about like why preemies got to stay in the hospital. Because they're not making surfactant. That's a little question. So you should have 5 questions now. Hey.
Hi.
Wait, do I even need to?
Huh?
Yeah, so that's both of you. That's both of you guys on here. Nobody's watching.
I'm late today.
I'm recording it. Can you see my computer? What I did? I just stopped doing it up there because it was a pain in the
Right
ass. Yeah. I'm just going over questions, and I'm recording it too. I'm just going over questions that I want to ask.
Mm-hmm.
Dude, I have a good mind to not upload this video.
We got the other ones, huh?
The other half of the class, you know what they're going to do? They're not going to watch shit. They're going to try to look for the question. They're going to take these slides that I write out. They're going to try to put it on their phone or write it somewhere, and they're going to try to cheat through the test. My eyes are going to be like on them, straight on them.
Y'all hear that? Y'all better not cheat.
You know, really, it's not the cheating part. It's just that they're lazy. They waited until the last second. It's like parasitic, like they hopped on at the last second. You guys got all this stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on to the next thing. If I got a next thing. So we talked about the laws, factors in inhalation, lung volumes, capacities, blah, blah. Oh, yeah, you know what? I might ask you, why is the air thin in the mountains? Just in your own words, you tell me why the air is thin. Why do we say the air is thin in the mountains or like in an airplane?
There's
Your pressure.
It's the pressure, right? It's got nothing to do with the amount of oxygen. The amount of oxygen is the same. It's 20%. Pressure drops. That's what the thin part is. That's it. That's all I was asking you.
I'm sorry. I got so much to write.
At least you made it, girl.
Huh?
At least you made it.
All right, so you said what is
Yeah,
the
we're
air?
kind of blowing through this because we're going to talk about like any other questions that people have. What's that?
So why is the air thinner in the mountains and it's
You
it's
said
due
it.
to
Pressure.
Yeah,
Pressure's lower. You're still breathing in the same amount of oxygen. It's just that it's not pressurized.
So is this the potential questions for?
Yeah, that was
It's
potential question
potential
number 6.
Or actual?
What's that?
These
Potential.
probably
Well,
actual because he.
I'm going to put 5. I've already given you guys 6 questions. So I'm going to pick 5. I probably got like 1 or 2 more that I'm going to put on there.
Mm.
I'm going to pick 5 from respiratory,
And I'm all right.
and the other 10 are going to come from that study guide.
This one will be the next one, so we can start typing it.
What's that?
rate of gas exchange depend on.
No, I was just saying that the pressure, no, you don't have to, don't worry about that one. We did that one. I think we're almost done. Okay, we are almost done. Look at this. All right, so let's talk about how like CO2 gets through the body. We know how oxygen gets through the body, right? It's hemoglobin. Oxygen, almost all oxygen attaches to hemoglobin. That's how we transport oxygen through the body. Carbon dioxide is a little different. It's not that I'm expecting you to know all of those, but the main one, if you look at those 4, the main one is compounds. I don't feel like thinking about it. Bicarbonate ions. The main one is bicarbonate ions. All right, so if you look at bicarbonate ions, I don't need to grab them. What happens is that the carbon dioxide joins with water, and it like with the water in your blood, and it forms what we call bicarbonate ions, and then it breaks apart later. So you don't have to know the formula. I was just showing you that carbon dioxide and water attach together, and they make bicarbonate and these things called protons. But the important thing is that most carbon dioxide forms bicarbonate ions. Some of it, I should have something there about attaching to proteins.
Detaching the proteins? No.
Carbamino compounds.
Attached to proteins.
Yeah, like when they attach to proteins in particular, I'm thinking like hemoglobin. So carbon dioxide can attach to hemoglobin. It doesn't do it a lot. Maybe I have like 23% on there, something like that. So there's pretty much three ways. Bicarbonate ions, that's the main way. So it attaches to water and it forms like a new compound. Second way is it'll attach to a protein, like hemoglobin. Third way is that it's just dissolved in the plasma. That should be like 7 or 8% or something.
So
Carbamino?
carbamino
Yeah.
compounds is you say attached to protein,
Yeah, because that means the same thing.
and bicarbonate is going to be attached to H2. What?
It's when carbon dioxide attaches to water. It just when that happens, we call it a bicarbonate ion. If you guys took Chem 1, Chem 1, understand that equation. Carbamino, when you see the word carboxyl and amino, it means like forget it, it's good. Anyway, that's going back to like biology. But if you see the word amino in any word in the future, it means proteins. Just think of proteins. I think that is question 7.
Yeah.
I think that's all I got. Well, I know. I don't need to say it that way. Yeah. That?
Oh, wait, so send me a document so I can write. I'm not a type.
We can go over it like. So this was one, how carbon dioxide is transported through the body.
I got that one.
That's 1. 2, the lung volumes and capacities.
Lung volume.
I'm gonna let them say what their questions are. Because I'm not gonna do it out of order.
The first is, what are the 3 laws of respiration?
Yes.
Three laws of respiration.
Yeah.
That's a good question. What are the 3 laws of respiration?
Boyles,
Without
Dalton,
looking.
and Boyles, Dalton, and Henry.
Excellent. So you know what Boyles is?
I put
That's the
pressure
breather
goes
in and
up,
out.
volume goes
The pressure.
down.
Yes.
Pressure goes down, volume goes up.
Yes. You don't have to say inverse relationship. Just what you said.
Oh, this is like what we've gone over.
Yeah,
The last one.
Wednesday.
Dalton's law?
It's responsible for its own
Yeah.
capacity.
Whatever oxygen's pressure is, it don't matter what
Every-
carbon dioxide is.
Exactly.
It's got its own pressure.
Its own pressure.
Independent. And what do we mean? Henry's is a little bit longer.
Amount of O2 which dissolves in blood,
Yeah.
proportionate to pressure of gas and solubility of liquid.
Yeah, you can even say it depends, right? The amount of oxygen that dissolves in blood depends on the pressure of the oxygen. And it depends on the solubility of the hemoglobin. Or like the affinity of the hemoglobin. So however you want to word that you understand it. Those are the 3 laws. While she's writing that, do you guys have like other questions? Okay, you know what? I'm gonna stop recording. All right, I'm gonna stop recording this for any of you that are watching. If you have questions, send me an email or you could call me 407-995-6445.
Can I watch the
Oh,
board?
someone's on here. Oh,
Yeah,
hey, how you doing?
I'm
Sorry.
doing good. No, it's okay. I got the questions, but I was wondering why I'm looking at the class. I'm like, can I watch the board?
Can you watch the board?
Yes.
Oh, you can. I didn't write anything. I don't got anything on it.
Okay. I thought you were
Are you-
over there writing down the questions
No,
on the
I brought.
board.
There's only 3 people here, and I brought the computer over by them, and they're just looking on the computer. My computer.
Okay.
So, like you can see the PowerPoint, right?
Yeah, I can see the
That's
PowerPoint.
all they've been looking at. The exact same thing.
Okay.
But you feel like you got the questions?
Yeah, I got all the questions. I'm good.
Yeah, you can stay on because they're gonna ask